All right, welcome back to the program. As you could see there, Director of Public Sector Initiative, Lagos Business School, Dr. Franklin Ngwu joins me right now from Lagos. Dr. Ngwu, welcome to the program and thank you for joining us. I haven't seen you this year, have I? So is it obsolete to say Happy New Year? A Happy New Year in February.
Good morning, Nancy. I hope you're fine and well and getting ready for 25th of February. Thank you for
Yes,
having me.
yes, I think we all are. We can't wait. Now let's get started as to what is happening right now with the information that I'm getting that the Council of States meeting is ongoing, somewhat virtually. Um, I think President Obasanjo is joining virtually. Former head of state Abdusalami, President Jonathan, Gowon are all in attendance with the central bank governor, the IGP, that's the IG of police, and INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud. They are all in the Council of States meeting right now. How crucial is this meeting, bearing in mind that the country is facing a twin crisis that is an economic crisis? After all, is the economy stupid? It's coming home to roost. Few crises as well as a cash crunch crisis. What are we expecting out of this meeting today? Bearing in mind the Supreme Court judgment earlier on this week and the confusion that Nigerians have currently as to whether the deadline of the new Naira ends today or Nigerians really don't know. What's your take on it?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me first of all say that, of course, Nigerians are expectant. They are looking forward to good outcomes from the meeting, but particularly with regards to the issue of Naira redesign, it's important that we understand that there's nothing special about this Naira redesign. It's normal, it's expected, it happens in other countries. The problem with Nigeria is the way things are handled. So is it a good policy? Yes, it's a good policy. Is it required? Yes, it is required. The question then is how it's been handled and also how it's been, maybe there are also interests that will not want it to happen this time. So we believe that after the Council of State meeting, that they will come out with resolutions or agreements in terms of assuring Nigeria that this policy is a good policy and it should be allowed to stay. Issues remaining in terms of getting the new currency to all parts of Nigeria, particularly those in the rural areas, those who are more vulnerable than those of us in the city. I mean, those are the issues that should be looked into. But the idea of some people arguing or advocating that the policy should be cancelled, it should be extended by 6 months, it should be this, it should be this. I mean, those those views are most unfortunate. Those are not something that we're supposed to be saying now. What we are supposed to be looking at is the benefits of the policies to Nigeria and how we can now address the shortcomings from its implementation.
Mm. Do you think there whatsoever decisions, I'm not preempting what will come out of this meeting, the Council of State meeting currently underway, but I'm just trying to juxtapose whatever the decisions will be as to the decision by the Supreme Court for a stay of execution, for just hold it there, hold your fire until we hear what the governors of Zamfara, Kogi, and Kaduna states have got to say. So Nigerians are really uncertain and unsure at this point. And let me also bring this in. At what point do you now create a divergence between the executive and the judiciary in terms of the judiciary interfering in monetary policy issues?
I mean, it's interesting that the governors of Kogi and Para, another governor went to court for this Naira redesign. But the question Nigeria should ask is, why didn't they go to court when CBN increases interest rate? Why didn't they go to court anytime CBN um, makes a public announcement with regards to different issues of monetary policy, or even some of the interventions that CBN has made on fiscal policy? Why didn't they go to court when all the time we'll be having fuel scarcity? Why didn't they go to court when it was announced that the 130 something million Nigerians are now classified as multidimensionally poor. So there are so many issues why they should go to court. So going to court just because there's a Naira redesign is quite, as I said before, is unfortunate, and it shows the priorities of those who we elect as our leaders. But the question we're also supposed to be asking is, with regards to, of course, I'm not a lawyer, so but from a layman point of view, I believe that the Supreme Court has, of course, considered it important for them to intervene in the matter. But of course, they are also, they didn't say, from what I read, that the policy is bad. They are just saying, okay, we'll look at it because it's a case between some states and federal government. But I'm not sure if CBN is joined in the suit, and also other people are joined in this, other stakeholders are joined in the suit. But what is important, as I keep emphasizing, is that this policy is a good policy. It should be supported, it should be encouraged, and it's long overdue. The challenge that we are facing is what we're supposed to be looking at in terms of how do we resolve it. So we also think that if after the National Council of State meeting, that they should also come out to say, this is what we are trying to do in terms of addressing those issues by getting the CBN, the banks, and other stakeholders to see how the challenges that Nigerians are facing are ameliorated.
Now, let's take a look at the challenges that Nigerians are facing, because the governors have also come out to say, I've heard the governor of Kaduna State on several occasions, or even some of APC party members come out to say that this policy by the Central Bank of Nigeria is really hurting our businesses, especially the informal sector that depend on cash on a daily basis. How do you think that Nigerians are reacting to all of this? You know, because for someone, for example, that hawks in Lagos or hawks in any part of the country on a tray, with a tray rather, and you will see that the amount of the goods on that woman's tray, or even the little child that is hawking, because that's a normal sight in the country, and you calculate everything that the child is hawking, is like not even up to 1,000 naira or 1,000, not up to 5,000 naira. Those kind of people depend on cash. I buy something 50 naira, I give you 50 naira or 100 naira, or even 200 naira now, 200 naira, because 200 naira is being redesigned. How do you expect those people to live at this point? Because financially, we're taking a look at those people. Some of the POS businesses have even shut down as of now. Some of those people are also not in businesses right now because of the cash crunch. So how can this situation be dealt with, and what can the central bank do, central bank and the banks do, to be able to get that ameliorated?
Of course, in any change, there will be some challenges that come with any change in policy, or even any change in our life. Well, let me mention something. I was in Rwanda last year, and we drove 6 hours from Kigali. We went to where they make tea, about 6 hours. So as we're coming back, we stopped somewhere on the road, and we bought roasted potato, and something like suya, and we paid. So, and we didn't pay with cash, we paid electronically. So what I'm trying to say is that even though there are challenges with this policy, but in terms of implementation, it brings about a lot of opportunities for banks and for other key stakeholders in the business. I'm also aware that there are some banks that are actually benefiting from this current policy in terms of number of new accounts that are being created, in terms of new deposits that are receiving. So what we're supposed to be looking at is, we should look at the short-term, medium-term, long-term costs and benefits. And from my own assessment and based on research, the medium to long-term benefit far outweigh the costs of this that we're facing at this moment. So there's no doubt that there are people who will be affected. But as I said before, it now creates opportunities for Nigerian banks to actually penetrate different parts of Nigeria with regards to what we call financial inclusion. So if we have a country of about 200 million people, and less than 50 million people have formal accounts in Nigerian banks, it means that a lot of opportunities exist for the banks, microfinance banks, and other fintech financial institutions. So what it then means that there are a lot of opportunities that we're supposed to be looking at. It is time we must move on as a country in terms of following what is going on globally. Cannot be saying that Nigeria, that we keep accepting cash for every transaction. Cash will still be there, but it is time for us to make progress. And that is what this kind of policy is more, will actually stimulate or induce for us to do.
Doctor, what the solution which you're bringing right now, what you're talking about right now is the short to medium, is the medium to long term. Talking about bringing a lot more people into the banking system and making more Nigerians financially included. A lot of us now move to the cashless way of transacting. But the issue right now is that there's a short-term challenge, which is some people that need cash do not have access to cash. Is there any recommendation for the Apex Bank on how to alleviate the situation right now so that we don't see the country move towards the, towards the trajectory is moving now? A lot of people are protesting right now. They don't have cash and all of that. What can the Central Bank of Nigeria do now with the stakeholders in that sector to enable us get out of this? Then there is a medium to long-term plan of, okay, guys, this is where we've got to move to. But how fast can the Apex Bank move in terms of making cash available to especially those that need them? Do you think they need to review the over-the-counter policy of cash and all of that? What do you think?
I think that for in the immediate term, in terms of the solutions that can be used to address this challenge that we are facing now, there are a few options that can be adopted. One is that CBN and the banks can make the new currency more available. They should also bring in more POS people into the transaction. Of course, in your presentation, you show that POS transactions has increased. So in addition to the normal way of getting money in Nigeria, we can also look at other options in terms of how do we use the informal lenders or aggregators to make this cash available. Of course, in most cities, in most towns, most villages in Nigeria, there are people that they call ajors or money lenders, as the case may be, who actually collect this money, take it back to the formal bank to make deposits in different parts of Nigeria. So it's also possible to bring them into the fold for immediate resolution of this crisis. It's also possible to bring in the local governments. It's also possible to bring in the traditional rulers. It's also possible to bring in religious institutions, maybe just for a week, to say, okay, we're going to use you to make this cash available to our rural dwellers, our vulnerable members of the society. And of course, what they're actually looking for is not really 1 million or 500,000 or 200. Some of them are looking for 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. So I believe that a combination of these both formal and informal channels can be used to address some of these issues. Where you know that you have religious institutions, for example, Catholic Church that is everywhere, Anglican Church that is everywhere, local government that is everywhere, traditional rulers that is everywhere, we can also bring them and say, you have to help us. We make this new currency available to you, and the people in your villages, in your distance, can come there and swap with their old currency. And of course, it's something that can be done and can be monitored as well.
Do you see this impacting the forthcoming elections in any way? And if you think it will, in what way will it impact the forthcoming elections? We are just about 14 days or 15 days to the presidential elections, because I've heard a lot of people say, okay, it will impact this election. But if you think so, in what way do you think so? And if you don't think so, why do you think so?
No, of course, based on our initial discussions, in terms of those who are going to court, in terms of, we've also been reading the different perspectives with regards to the impact of this policy. Of course, we can make deductions, or we can assume, or we can, based on maybe gossips, as the case may be, that those who are clamoring or who are campaigning against this policy might be those who might be interested in using money to drive this election. So if that's the case, of course, generally, with this policy, with the absence of money in circulation, limited money in circulation, it means that the previous experiences of having so much money during the election, in terms of vote buying, in terms of money moving around, swaying voters, might not be the case this time around. So we expect that in terms of money in circulation during this election, it will be reduced. So maybe Nigeria will now assess the candidates based on their character, their competence, their manifesto, what they want to do for Nigerians, and vote based on these indices and not based on who will deploy enormous money during the elections. So we also expect that in terms of movement of people, that it might be a bit constrained in the sense that many people might not have money to move around the way they want to move around. It also means that insecurity might not be there the way we think that insecurity they normally have during previous elections. So in overall, I believe that the policy will have positive impact in terms of helping us to have a better election in Nigeria.
Okay, so from your own analysis, a bit of logistical concerns are there because some people may even want to travel, live where they are currently to perhaps go to their hometowns or wherever they want to vote, because we see that kind of migration too, that some people travel to go vote wherever they want to vote. So there could also be...
Let me say something, Nancy. Of course, I mean, the way these things have been portrayed, as if to say there is no money at all in Nigeria. There is money in Nigeria. And what we are saying and what we are seeing is that it's not available the way it's supposed to be available. But I believe that in this week, next week, before the election, the efforts of the bank and the central bank, the money is now in the distribution or the supply is improving. So we believe that towards the week to the election, if you want to travel, you can travel. Even if you want to travel now, most transport firms accept transfers. So it's not that there are no other channels where money can be transferred. All we are saying is that there are challenges now, but I believe that all the relevant authorities are doing their best to see how these challenges can be resolved. But in terms of do people want to travel, yes, they can travel. I'm not sure there's any transport firm that will not accept transfer or other means of transportation. So that's what we are supposed, as I keep saying, the emphasis should be on how do we make this policy to work, because is it a good policy for Nigeria? Yes, it's a good policy for Nigeria, and it should be supported.
How do you see money politics playing out in Nigeria, bearing in mind that we have a history of vote buying and perhaps vote selling? Do you see this impacting a bit of that in terms of the money bags or the political parties trying to induce voters to vote for their parties? How do you see this playing out in the sense of money politics in Nigeria? Do you think that this will really curb, this will be a starting point to curbing the high impact of money politics in our system? Vis-a-vis also, I need to bring it in, the beavers that is going to be used to conduct this election.
I think that combining different factors, the current monetary Naira policy, beavers, I mean, all the efforts of both the federal government and INEC and other agencies, I personally think that the election will be a better election as compared to previous ones. And I think the issue, of course, money is very important in politics in Nigeria, but I believe that with all these policies, a better outcome will be achieved. People will now be able to maybe possibly assess the candidates based on what they are promising to do, not based on those that have the highest amount of money to check. So I think generally, given the way things are going, what the president has said, what INEC is saying, or what they've been saying, what the security agencies are trying to do, I think it will be a better election as compared to a previous election. And I think also that money, while important, might not be very obvious as it's normally be in previous elections. So I think I'm hopeful and optimistic that it will be a better election than previous elections.
What would you say about Nigerians' attitude to money politics at this time? What do you perceive that if Nigerians have supposedly been induced, that Nigerians would take the money and vote their conscience, so to speak, bearing in mind there's also a beavers.
It will be a combination of taking the money and voting your conscience, and taking the money and voting for the person that gave you money. Let me mention something. This election will be decided by Nigerians. But there are so many factors that are going to consider in voting. So they will be considering the level of unemployment. They will be considering the level of insecurity. They will be considering the level of poverty in Nigeria. They will be considering the persistence and incurable fuel crisis. They will be considering the lack of opportunities in Nigeria. They will be considering the number of people that have been killed by herdsmen, by unknown gunmen, and different. So these are issues that must be considered. Whether they give you money or they don't give you money, these are issues that are determined by the kind of government that we're going to have in Nigeria. So I believe that while money will be there, people will also be rational enough to consider these factors in making their mind in terms of who to support.
Now, if we take a look at some of the things that we're looking at, okay, I'm torn as to which question to ask now. So let me articulate my thoughts better. Let me ask you this question before we go to the manifestos. Do you see any risk of this 2023 elections? Do you see any?
Of course, there are risks. Of course, if you follow what is going on in the capital market, most investors are a bit hesitant. They are waiting to see what will be the outcome of the elections. Some of the people that we also engage, when you engage them and say, we can do X, Y, Z, they will tell you, yes, it's a very interesting proposal. We want to do it, but let's just tarry a while. Let's see how the elections will turn out to be and all that. So there are risks, there are investments risk. There are also security risk as well. So of course, as you've been following, the level of insecurity is still very, very high. We are still seeing killings going on in different parts of the country. So we believe that maybe it might increase, it might not increase. We also seen pictures where different candidates or different parties have been attacked in different parts of the country. So these are all risks that are happening. But we believe that, given, as I said earlier on, the way the government is promising, we hope and believe that they will live up to the expectations to see how they can curb some of these challenges and some of these risks as we move towards the election. I mean, in terms of the conduct of the campaign so far, I would say it's been encouraging in terms of particularly the presidential candidates. They've been moving around the country, and it's been reasonably good in terms that we haven't had so many issues in terms of attacks, in terms of insecurity, but so it's encouraging. So we believe that momentum or that direction will be kept as we get close to February 25th. So we are just about 2 weeks to the election. So we believe that this will continue, and hopefully the election will come and go, and Nigeria will remain. But what is more important is how do we get the right people to, as I said, to address the issue of insecurity, unemployment, low productivity. If you follow the last World Bank report, NESG report, IMF reports, they're all telling us what to do. So all these reports are indicating that Nigeria is in a crisis position. So what we are looking forward is that as we elect new leaders, Nigeria should look back and say, who do we think will help us to address some of these issues that as I've enumerated?
So do you, okay, I heard you clearly earlier, and if we take a look at the manifestos of these political parties, and I'm being restricted a bit to speak about the 4 political parties, APC, PDP, Labour Party, as well as the NNPP. I've critically looked at those manifestos, and like what I mentioned earlier from James Carville, who was a strategist to Bill Clinton in the 1992 elections, that his phrase always comes back to me anytime we're having a general election in Nigeria, which is, it's the economy, stupid, which he mentions, or which he really takes a look at, that electorates will go to the polls with the assessment of the health of the economy. What do you think will really play out at this 2023 elections? in terms of Nigerians assessing the health of the Nigerian economy. How different will 2023 elections be from 2019 and from 2015? At least the last two elections, oh yes, 2019, 2015, the last two elections. What is the stark difference this time? Because Nigerians have always approached the polls too, having in mind that, oh, our economy is not good. That was why President Jonathan was ousted, that we needed a change. And 2019, President Buhari was voted again on, okay, let's consolidate, give me time. This was what PDP did. They did a lot of mess, but give me another 4 years, I'm going to correct it. I don't know if Nigerians are really satisfied in terms of the correction that this current president has brought. So just oppose it with those situations that I've really enumerated to you.
I think you've actually more or less helped me to answer the question in the sense that you've said that Jonathan was more or less removed based on economic indices on economic situation at 2015. So if we use 2015 and now to look at all key economic variables, you will agree with me that we are worse off. Is it in terms of debt that we are now close to almost 70-something trillion naira? Is it in terms of unemployment that we are now close to with youth unemployment over close to 40%? Is it in terms of poverty that we now have 133 million Nigerians classified as multidimensionally poor? We are now classified as the poverty capital of the world. Is it in terms of inflation? Is it in terms of insecurity? Is it in terms of what will you count that we are not worse off? So the question is that Nigerians will consider all this. And when you look at the manifestos of these different candidates, of course, they appreciate the enormity of our situation. And as I said, IMF just released a report. Yeah. World Bank, they came to the Lagos Business School last 2 weeks to do a presentation. We've also seen the report of Nigerian Economic Summit Group. All of them are saying the same thing. There are certain things that we're supposed to do urgently as we move into 2023. So all the candidates in their manifesto, they agreed, there are certain similarities or commonalities across the four of them that you mentioned. They all agree that the issue of subsidy needs to be properly re-examined and possibly removed. They all agree that the issue of insecurity has to be properly looked into. They all agree that Nigeria is more or less divided and it needs to be healed. They all agree that the issue of the privatization, some of, like particularly Atiku, agree that is important. And they all also believe that education has to be better funded in terms of even including P2B for as well. But the question then is, when you look at all of them in totality and compare all of them, of course, the other candidates also have their manifestos. But if we're focusing on these four in terms of APC candidate Bola Tinubu, Atiku Abubakar, P2B, and Kwankwaso, I would say that in terms of assessing their manifestos, with regards to what Nigeria is facing and what Nigerians are expecting, I will judge P2B's manifesto as number one in terms of some of the things that he's said that he's going to do. Number one is securing and uniting Nigeria. And one of the issues is moving Nigeria from consumption to production. If you look at the report from NESG last week or last 2 weeks, it was clearly stated that manufacturing is not really doing well at all. And also that takes us to the issue of agriculture that contributes over 25-something% to the economy, but in terms of revenue is neither here nor there. And of course, he has also emphasized the need for how do we develop our agricultural sector. And he has also emphasized the need to use the lands in the north as our new gold. So when you look at totality, I believe that his manifesto, that's P2B, Labour Party's manifesto, can be judged as the best of the manifestos. But of course, it doesn't mean that the other candidates don't have good manifestos. But in terms of the challenge that we're facing in Nigeria now, some of these things are, as I said before, enumerated. One, we have to remove subsidy. We have to cut cost of governance. We have to look at how do we have the same exchange rate. And how do we now make sure that we have better monetary and fiscal policies, whereby the monetary policy and the fiscal policy will align, and not where the central bank is more or less performing both monetary policy and fiscal policy because of the weakness of the fiscal policy authorities. So we believe that with the manifestos and the candidates and also the reports from different quarters, what the new government is supposed to do will be very clear to them, at least in the immediate terms, in terms of doing some of these things that I've enumerated. And we believe that once they get in, Nigeria should be a better place, or will start improving, at least in terms of addressing some of these economic challenges that we are facing at the moment.
Okay, Doctor, we have just about a minute to end this program. Now, if you take a look at it, you've just said from your own analysis, the Labour Party, Peter Obi's manifesto, you've agreed, or you mentioned to me that at least it's a bit holistic, but some other analysts may also have a different point of view, because I've actually analyzed the manifestos here on my show. For example, Kwakwanso's manifesto, I didn't say anything about fuel subsidy in his manifesto, for example. You know, but as we end the program, what do you want our viewers to take away from this, with the twin crisis we're facing and with a potpourri of all the political, you know, tantrums going up and down? What do you think that Nigerians should take away from this? Do you still think that the power lies in our hands as Nigerians to vote on February 25 and on March 11?
Of course, the power is with us. That's why all the candidates are moving around different parts of Nigeria. They've actually been doing well in terms of the way they are moving. All the candidates, particularly the top three, that is APC, PDP, and Labour Party, they've been more or less going around the different states in Nigeria. But that also shows and confirms that the power is with us, Nigerians. So as we go into the election, the 2 weeks that is remaining to the election, what I want to say is that for Nigerians to sit back and look and say, who do we think has the competence, the character, and the determination to take us from where we are, which is most unfortunate and lamentable, to a better place? So I want Nigerians to sit back and re-examine and say, it's time for Nigeria as a country to move forward. It's not about this person is from here, or this person is from there, or this person is from there, or the religion that the person attends. It's about Nigeria. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about Nigeria. And Nigeria must move forward because it's a country that is immensely and tremendously blessed. What we require is just the right leadership that will move this country forward by doing few basic things to achieve a better society. It's a country of 200 million people, vast natural resources, human capital, everything you can think of, you see it in Nigeria. So it's unfortunate that with all these blessings, with all these opportunities that we have in Nigeria, that we are still poor, that we are classified as the poverty capital of Nigeria, that we are still suffering from all kinds of issues that we have in Nigeria. So I implore Nigeria, I beg Nigerians that this 2023 election is about Nigeria. It's not about any party, it's about Nigeria, for Nigeria to move forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us on today's edition of the program. And I wish you a lovely day. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you.
All right,
have a good day. Thank you for having me.
I've been speaking with Dr. Franklin Ngwu, who is the Director of Public Sector Initiative at the Lagos Business School. We've been taking a look at the 2023 elections, Nigeria's socio-economic conditions. That's the much you can take on today's edition of the program. Thank you for your company. Please join me again and my wonderful team, because a whole lot of people behind the camera puts all of this together. I'll see you all again next week. Be the best you can be, and with a change that you want to see. Bye for now.